He is 43 years old now. He stands at the window of his small house in the English Midlands most evenings with a cup of tea in his hand, and he watches the light go out of the sky. He does not think in those moments about the day he died. He thinks about the price of bread, about whether his sister will visit on Sunday, about the small ordinary weather of a Tuesday in late autumn. He thinks sometimes about nothing at all. But if you asked him, if you sat in his small kitchen and you waited until the tea was finished and the room had grown quiet enough, he would tell you, in a voice so calm it might be the calmest voice you have ever heard say it, that death is going to be the best moment of your life. He would say this without raising his voice. He would say it without irony, without performance, without trying to convince you. He would say it the way a man tells you the weather forecast, because he has been there twice, and he came back twice, and he knows what is waiting at the other side of the small machine that the doctors put inside his chest. His name is Phil. He is, by every available measure, an unremarkable man. He works in production. He keeps notes for meetings. He drinks his tea with milk. He grew up agnostic, and he has remained agnostic, in the technical sense of the word, by his own preferred label, which means he does not belong to any religion, has not attended any service in his adult life, and would not, in a survey, tick the box for believer. He believes in genetics. He believes in cardiology. He believes in the laws of physics, with the small exception now of what happened to him inside those laws on the afternoon of April 13th, 2021. He is not, in any way that the word would normally mean, religious. And yet, in the small private hours of the morning, when the house is quiet and his wife is still asleep, he prays. He cannot tell you to what he prays. He has tried. The closest he can come is to say that he is sending up a quiet thanks to the universe, or to whatever the universe is the surface of, and that he is asking, on most mornings, for nothing, only sending. He does not call it prayer. But the body knows what it is doing when it folds its hands at 5 in the morning in front of a kitchen window. This is the story of how an English production office worker in his late 30s, in the city of his ordinary life, came to know, twice, and with documentation, what happens at the moment a heart stops beating. It is the story of a small medical device, no larger than a coin, that one of the more inventive of the United Kingdom's cardiologists implanted just below his collarbone, and that, through the silent miracle of modern microelectronics, captured the second of his 2 cardiac arrests in such complete clinical detail that the recording is now a part of the literature of his diagnosis. It is the story of what Phil saw in the 2 minutes during which his heart was not moving, on 2 separate afternoons 5 weeks apart, in 2 separate rooms, of which the second was his own quiet living room with the late light coming in through the windows. It is the story of what he understood about being alive, and about no longer being alive, and about the small, bright, continuous corridor between those 2 states that the rest of us, in the ordinary geometry of our days, do not have a vocabulary for. It is the story of a man who came home from death twice, carrying a single sentence. Death is going to be the best moment of your life. This is his story. To understand what is being claimed in that sentence, you have to go back, not to the beginning of the story. The story does not begin at the beginning. It begins the way the story arrived in Phil's life on the evening of the second of his 2 cardiac arrests in a hospital bed somewhere in the National Health Service of Central England, with the small humming machinery of a cardiac ward holding the room together while a nurse adjusts an IV line on his left arm and a junior doctor stands at the foot of his bed scrolling, with mild professional impatience, through a tablet. Phil is awake. He is alive. He is, by every measurement the room can take of him, in a stable and improving condition. The heart, after its second silence of the year, has resumed its work. The blood is moving. The brain has not, this time either, sustained any visible injury. But Phil is trying to tell the doctor something. He is trying, with the careful, slightly halting words of a man who has not yet found the right ones, to explain what happened to him in the 2 minutes during which his heart was not beating. He is using ordinary English words. Light, he says. Photographs, a kind of download. He is trying to say that he was somewhere. He is trying to say that he was given something. He is trying to say that he came back with what felt, in the small private chamber behind his sternum, like an answer. The doctors do not seem to care. This is the part of the story that Phil, when he tells it now, 3 years later, returns to most often. It is not that the doctors were rude. They were not rude. They were tired. They had 4 other cardiac patients on the ward that night. They had paperwork. They had a registrar's meeting at 6 in the morning. They were polite, in the way that overworked NHS doctors are polite, which is to say that they nodded at Phil while he was speaking, made small, reassuring noises at the appropriate pauses, and did not, at any point, lift their eyes from the tablet for longer than 3 seconds at a time. The nurses were warmer. One of them, a woman in her 50s, with the careful kindness of someone who has been at this bedside before, sat down for a few minutes and listened. She did not say much. She nodded. She told him at one point that her sister had told her something similar years ago after a complication during childbirth. She put a hand on his shoulder. She left. Phil understood by the end of that evening that he was not going to be able to explain this to the people in the white coats in the language they had been trained to hear. He stopped trying. This is also a piece of the testimony, and the researchers at Sam Parnia's group, who have spent 2 decades collecting accounts very much like Phil's, will tell you that it is one of the most consistent details across the entire catalog. Almost no one is met on the immediate return from a near-death experience by an audience capable of receiving it. The returner has been somewhere the rest of us have not been. The vocabulary that the returner needs has not yet been invented in the rooms where the returner now finds themselves. The doctors do not have time. The family is in shock. The friends are uncertain whether to laugh or cry. The world the returner has come back to does not, in most cases, know how to listen. So the returner, almost without exception, goes quiet. This is what Phil did. He went quiet for the rest of that evening in the hospital bed. He drank a small cup of weak tea that the nurse brought him. He watched the cardiac monitor blink its steady green numbers above his head. He closed his eyes. He waited for sleep that would not come. And inside him, under the surface of the polite, tired evening of the ward, the sentence that he had carried back from the place beyond the device under his collarbone began, very quietly, to settle. Death, he understood, with a calm so complete it surprised him, was going to be the best moment of his life. He just did not yet know how to say it out loud. To understand how Phil came to be in that hospital bed, you have to go back 5 weeks earlier, and you have to go to the small living room of his own house, and you have to know about the device. The device was a loop recorder, an internal loop recorder. If you have not heard of one of these, that is not unusual. They are a quiet piece of modern cardiology, small enough that they do not make the news, important enough that they are quietly saving lives in cardiac wards across the world. The unit Phil was given is approximately the size of a 1-pound coin. It is metallic, oblong, with rounded corners. It is implanted just beneath the skin, slightly above the heart, on the left side of the chest, by a cardiologist using a local anesthetic and a procedure that takes about 20 minutes. What the device does is this. It listens. It listens to the heart continuously for up to 3 years on a single battery. It captures and stores every rhythm, every beat, every pause. If something goes wrong, if the heart stops or stutters or attempts a rhythm it should not attempt, the device records the event with clinical precision, and the next time the patient comes in for a check, the cardiologist downloads the recording and reads, in numbers and waveforms, exactly what happened. The device was inserted into Phil's chest 2 weeks after his first cardiac arrest. It was, in a quiet way, the most important thing his doctors had ever given him. What it gave them, 5 weeks after the first arrest, was a complete digital transcript of his second. This is a fact, and it is worth pausing on. There is a 30-second segment of recorded data, currently held in the cardiac files of the hospital where Phil was treated, that captures, beat by beat, in absolute clinical objectivity, the moment at which Phil's heart, in his own living room, on a Tuesday afternoon roughly 5 weeks after the first event, went silent for the second time. The recording shows a normal rhythm. It shows then a single irregular beat. It shows then a cascade of irregular beats accelerating into the pattern that cardiologists call non-sustained ventricular tachycardia, the racing of a heart that has lost its conductor. It shows then the flat line. It shows then 2 minutes of nothing. It shows then, and this is the part of the recording that the cardiologist who reviewed it would later describe as biologically unexplainable, a single weak beat, and another, and another, and the slow, hesitant return of a rhythm that the heart, by every model of cardiac physiology, should not have been able to recover on its own. By the time Phil's wife came home from the shops and found him slumped on the small gray sofa in their living room, his heart was beating again. He was breathing. He was, by every visible measure, alive, but he had been for 2 minutes, and the device under his collarbone could now prove it, entirely gone. What Phil remembers of those 2 minutes when he tells the story now is identical to what he remembered of the first time. The same warm light, the same flood of photographs, the same flooding through of appraisal. The sense that something patient and intelligent and infinitely kind was holding up the small reel of his life, frame by frame, and was reflecting it back to him in a high-speed download that felt like being remembered into existence. The same conclusion. That whatever the universe was doing with him in that moment was not punishment, was not erasure, was something closer to a welcoming. His wife called the ambulance. The paramedics arrived. They took Phil to hospital. The cardiologist on call that evening pulled the data from the loop recorder, and the modern instruments of British medicine, in a small clinical room at the back of a regional hospital, listened, for the first time in the recorded history of cardiology, to the silent 2 minutes of a near-death experience that the patient had returned from. Between the first cardiac arrest and the second, 5 weeks passed. It is worth spending some time inside those 5 weeks, because they were not what the rest of the story would lead you to expect. Phil did not, during those 5 weeks, become a different man. He did not quit his job. He did not move to a remote village to write a memoir. He did not start a podcast. He did not, in any visible outward way, change. He went back to work. He sat at his desk in the production office. He attended the meeting whose notes he had been preparing on the morning of the first event. He apologized with mild embarrassment for missing it. He took new notes for the next one. He drank his coffee. He answered his emails. He went home in the evening, watched the news with his wife, ate a small late dinner, and went to bed. He did not tell anyone during those 5 weeks what he had seen. What he carried, quietly, inside himself, beneath the ordinary surface of the routine, was a sentence. The sentence was not a slogan. He had not coined it. He had not, during the 2 minutes of the first arrest, heard a voice say it. He had not, on his return, written it down. He had not yet, and he would not for some months, articulate it. But the sentence was there. It was there the way a tune is there in the head of someone who has just heard music and is now walking home, humming inside themselves without realizing. It was there the way water is there in the body of a fish. The sentence was that he was no longer afraid of dying. He was, if anything, and this is the part of the testimony that requires care, because it is the part that can sound, in the wrong telling, like denial or like recklessness, he was looking forward to it, not in the sense that he wanted his life to end. He very much did not want his life to end. He wanted to keep working in the production office. He wanted his wife to come home on Tuesdays from the supermarket. He wanted to keep watching the light go out of the sky from his small kitchen window. But he had been shown, in 2 minutes, that what was waiting on the other side of that going out was not erasure. It was the opposite of erasure. It was the most thorough remembering he had ever been allowed to receive. So he lived his 5 weeks. He went back to ordinary life with the small humming device in his chest, the device that was listening to his heart 24 hours a day, ready to record whatever came next. He did not think about the device very often after the first few days. The body accepts these things. The skin healed over. The small surgical scar, about the length of a thumbnail, became invisible to him within a fortnight. He thought sometimes about the question of whether the first event was a one-off, a freak conjunction of stress and undiagnosed genetic predisposition, or whether the device, sooner or later, was going to record another one. He thought, when he allowed himself to think about it, that the second possibility was the more honest one. He was right. This is what the testimony, taken in full, is asking us to consider. That a man can walk around for 5 weeks of an ordinary English spring, carrying inside his own chest a small electronic instrument that is patiently listening for the next time his heart will stop, and that this man, knowing what is waiting if and when it does stop, can sit through Tuesday meetings and drink Friday pints and watch Sunday football without his hands shaking. That this is what not being afraid of dying actually looks like in the body of someone who has been shown. It looks like Tuesday. It looks like Tuesday continuing to be Tuesday. It looks like the small, ordinary continuation of an ordinary life, with the radio on quietly in the kitchen and the kettle just beginning to whistle. The first cardiac arrest happened in his office on the morning of April 13th, 2021. Phil had arrived at work at the usual time. He had made himself a coffee from the small communal kitchen at the back of the production floor. He had walked to his desk, which was, as it had been for the previous 4 years of his employment, by the window on the left side of the second floor office, with a view of the small gray car park, and beyond that, the slate roofs of the industrial estate that surrounded the building. He had opened his laptop. He had pulled out a small notepad. He had begun to write notes, by hand because he had always preferred handwriting for meeting prep, for a meeting that was scheduled to begin at 10 that morning. He had written at the top of the page the date and the agenda heading. He had written beneath that 3 small bullet points relating to the project under discussion. He had begun at approximately 9:42 in the morning to write the 4th bullet point. He never finished it. What his colleagues remember is this. They remember that Phil took a sudden deep breath, what one of them later described as a breath that sounded surprised. They remember that his hand, the one holding the pen, dropped to the desk. They remember that his head tilted slightly back. They remember that his eyes, which had been looking down at the notepad, looked up briefly, focused on something at the far wall of the office that none of them could see, and then unfocused. And they remember that his desk chair, which was on small caster wheels, began to rotate slowly to the left, pushed by the small involuntary movement of his weight shifting in the seat, and that within a few seconds, Phil was no longer sitting in the chair. He was on the floor. His body was convulsing. His face was beginning to discolor. We will not dwell on the next several minutes inside the office, because what happened to Phil's body during those minutes was the kind of medical event that does not benefit from being narrated in detail. The seizure was severe. The body's instinct to protect itself was overridden by the catastrophic loss of cardiac function. There was blood. There was the particular sound that a grown man's body makes when it strikes a carpeted office floor at speed. His colleagues did the right things. One called the ambulance. One ran for the office defibrillator, which was on the wall by the lift. One, a younger woman who had taken a first aid course the year before, knelt beside him and began, with the unsteady but courageous compression rhythm that civilians learn from posters in their offices, the chest compressions that would, very probably, keep enough oxygen circulating in his brain to give the paramedics the small window of recoverable time they would need when they arrived. It is one of the gentle facts of modern British civic life that an ordinary office on an ordinary Tuesday morning contains within it a small invisible web of competent people who will do the unglamorous work of trying to save the life of a colleague they barely know. They did the work. The paramedics arrived in under 9 minutes. By the time the paramedics arrived, Phil's heart, though they did not know it yet, and would not know it until the hospital later that afternoon, had been not beating for almost 2 of those minutes. What happened inside Phil during those 2 minutes is the subject of the next act of this episode. It is the center of the testimony. It is the part of the story that the rest of the story has been working slowly backwards toward, the way a tide works slowly backwards toward the shore that produced it. But before we go there, before we enter the small bright corridor that Phil entered when his heart went quiet, it is worth pausing, just for a few seconds, on what was happening in the room he was leaving. His colleagues were on their knees on the carpet. The young woman was counting compressions. The man with the defibrillator was reading, with shaking hands, the instructions printed on the device's lid. The phone on Phil's desk, abandoned mid-call, was buzzing quietly. The 4th bullet point of his meeting notes, half finished, lay beside his right hand on the floor where it had fallen. The cursor on his laptop screen beside his chair was blinking. The kettle on the office kitchen counter, 2 rooms away, had just begun to whistle. This is the room from which Phil left. Break time 2s. The first thing he understood when his heart stopped was that he was warm. This is, in itself, a peculiar piece of testimony. He had been cold, sitting at his desk by the window in early April. The office heating had been off all weekend, and the morning had not yet warmed up. The kettle had not yet boiled. His hands, holding the pen, had been faintly chilled. What he felt, in the first moment after the chair began to spin away from him, was the opposite: a warmth. Not the warmth of a fire, or of a blanket, or of an embrace, but a warmth that seemed to be coming from inside the air itself, as if the molecules of whatever room he was now in had been gently turned up by a few degrees. The warmth was the first sign that he was no longer where he had been. The second sign was the light. The light, when he tried to describe it later to his wife, was the part of the experience that he found hardest to put into language. He would say that it was warm and nurturing and healing. He would say that it had no source, no sun, no lamp, no bulb, and that it appeared to be coming, simultaneously, from every direction at once. He would say that it had the color of late golden afternoon, but that the late afternoon had been distilled somehow to its essence. He would say that the light felt the way being held feels. That was the closest he could come. He stood, though standing is not the right word, because there was no floor, inside that light. He felt no fear. He felt no urgency. He felt no panic about the strangeness of his situation. He felt instead a complete and immediate at-homeness, as if he had walked through a door he had been near, without realizing it, his entire life. And then the photographs began. There were thousands of them. They appeared in the air around him, in the warm, honey-colored light, as small, luminous frames, each one containing a single image from his life. They were not, he would insist later, fixed pictures in the way a photograph in a frame is fixed. They were alive. They moved. They breathed. Each one contained, somehow, not just the visual record of a moment, but the entire emotional weight of that moment, the full meaning of it, the love or sadness or boredom or laughter that had been inside him when the moment was happening. He saw the photograph of his 5th birthday, with the cake his mother had baked and the small group of cousins around the table. He felt, simultaneously, the exact feeling of being 5 years old in his mother's kitchen. He saw the photograph of the afternoon he had met his wife 12 years before at a friend's party in a flat in Manchester. He felt, simultaneously, the exact feeling of seeing her face for the first time. He saw the photograph of his grandfather's funeral. He felt, simultaneously, the exact feeling of being 23 and not yet able to say what he had wanted to say. The photographs came in rapid fire. That was the phrase he would use later, with the slight half-embarrassed precision of a production office man reaching for a technical word he could trust. They came at the speed of a slideshow on full automatic, but each one, somehow, was complete in itself, fully felt, fully received. He understood while it was happening that he was being shown his life. He understood while it was happening that whatever was showing him his life was not judging him. It was appreciating him. It was the slow, complete, unconditional appraisal of a long-tenured editor reviewing the manuscript of a writer they had been mentoring for the entire writer's career. With full understanding, full forgiveness, full love. It was, he would later say, the universe doing him the small honor of remembering him in detail. He had never, in his nearly 40 years, felt so completely seen. To complete the recession of the story, you have to go back one more step, into the morning that immediately preceded the office, and ask the small question of what Phil was doing, what kind of man he was, on the threshold of the day that would change his life. The answer, in honesty, is nothing remarkable. Phil had woken up at 6:30, as he did most weekdays. He had showered. He had dressed in the soft gray jumper and the dark blue jeans that his wife had washed and folded the previous evening. He had gone downstairs to the small kitchen, where his wife was already up and making coffee, and he had kissed her, briefly, on the cheek, the way couples kiss on Tuesday mornings, and he had eaten a piece of toast. He had read a paragraph of the news on his phone. He had not registered, particularly, what the paragraph said. He had said goodbye to his wife. He had walked to the bus stop. He had ridden the bus for 14 minutes to the industrial estate where his office was located. He had walked from the bus stop to the building. He had nodded at the security guard on the front desk, whose name was Carl. He had taken the lift to the second floor. He had said good morning to two colleagues he passed in the corridor. He had reached his desk by the window. He had opened his laptop. He had begun to write his notes for the 10 o'clock meeting. That was the entire content of his morning. There was no premonition. There was no warning sign in his body, no flicker of unease at the edge of his attention, no strange dream the night before, no message from the universe that something was about to change. He had not, in any way that he could later identify, known that today was going to be the day his heart would stop for the first time. He had been, in the most accurate possible word for it, fine. He had been a man going to work on a Tuesday in April. He had been a man who believed in the casual, untested way that most of us believe, that he would come home in the evening, that he would watch a program on the television, that he would go to bed, that he would wake up on Wednesday and do it all over again. He had not yet been given the small, unrepeatable lesson of the photographs in the warm light. He had been in the way that you, sitting somewhere right now, watching this on a screen, with your own ordinary day continuing around you, are this very moment before any of it. He was a man who did not yet know. He is 43 years old now. He stands at the window of his small house in the English Midlands most evenings, with a cup of tea in his hand, and he watches the light go out of the sky. It has been almost 3 years since the second of his 2 cardiac arrests. The loop recorder has recorded no further events. The condition is being managed. The body for now is steady. Phil does not know whether the device will record a third event one day. He does not, in the way the rest of us would, find this question frightening. He has carried for almost 3 years the small private certainty that whatever the device records next, it will not be the end of him. He watches the light go, and inside him, very quietly, the sentence continues to settle. This is ND Cosmic Legacy. We tell one story like Phil's every week, quietly, faithfully. Phil's testimony lives in the public archive of NDERF and has been referenced in the literature on implantable cardiac monitoring during near-death events. We have not embellished it. We have only slowed it down enough for you to hear it. If something in Phil's story reached the place in you that this kind of story reaches, the place that does not usually speak in words, we would like to ask you for a few small things. If this story moves something in you, please leave a like. Not for us. For the next person, the one whose cardiologist has just told them this morning that there is something in the family history that needs investigating. The one whose mother is being moved to palliative care this weekend. The one who has, for reasons they would not be able to articulate to anyone, been searching at 3 in the morning for stories like Phil's because something inside them is asking a question they have not yet found the courage to ask aloud. The like is a small lantern. It tells the platform where the light is. It changes sometimes an entire night for someone you will never meet. If you would like to be here when the next story arrives, subscribe and turn on the bell. Next week, another voice arrives, a voice we have not yet heard on this channel, carrying a kind of testimony we have not yet told. We would like you to be there when we tell it. Subscribe so you do not lose the thread. Turn on the bell so the door opens before you have to look for it. If something in Phil's story finds you in a place you can name, leave one word in the comments below. Just one, a single word. It can be the name of someone you have lost. It can be a word like photographs, if you understood what those photographs meant to him. It can be a word like Tuesday, if Phil's small ordinary morning landed somewhere in you. We will not ask you to explain it, we will only read it. And the next person who scrolls into this comment section at 3 in the morning will read it too. One word, no explanation. We read everyone. And then, if you can, pass this episode to one person. One person you know who is sitting beside a hospital bed tonight. One person who has been carrying, in private, the small heavy weight of an upcoming cardiac procedure. One person who has been afraid, for themselves, for someone they love, of the thing Phil came back from. You do not have to say anything when you send it. Just send it. This is how the lantern keeps moving. One like, one bell, one word, one forward, one person at a time, finding out that they are not alone in the dark, that the warmth that received Phil in the office on a Tuesday morning in April is the same warmth that is right now holding someone they love. Death is going to be the best moment of your life. That is what Phil came home twice to tell us. That is the testimony we have tried in this episode to be faithful to. Light your lantern. Pass it to whoever you know is sitting beside a bed tonight. We will see you next week.